turned your life around. Let's talk about addiction and what it took to get free of it.
Addiction is something more than the abuse of substances. Typically, when you're abused, once you've gotten to that point, your whole life has changed. When I go out and talk to groups or when people call my hotline number, I typically tell them the only thing you've got to change is everything. And I mean everything. Because the addiction part, you even get addicted to the chaos. I can remember getting fired up when I knew I was going into a crack house with no lights and no water, stealing. I got addicted to that. I got a rush with that as well. So to transform or to get clean, for lack of a better word, I needed to change Richard from inside out. Sort of like an onion, the peeling, the layers.
Yes.
So I needed to peel away from that, expose that cruddy part and let it go away and let God into my heart, get spiritual, and just change my way of thinking.
When you say the only thing you need to change is everything, that's a tall order. For someone that's sitting in the middle of addiction, if you say to me, the only thing you need to change is everything, the first thing that comes to my mind is I can't do that. I don't have the ability to do that. I don't have the power to do that. Now, you talked about allowing God to come in. Does faith play a part in?
It does. The rate of recidivism in addiction is out the door. I mean, it is literally, with some drugs, 95%.
Wow.
In other words, you only got a 5% chance of success. So it comes into play, changing everything more than you ever believe. A lot of people, just like in life, when people want to change things, but they want to hold on to something. That something will keep you on what we talked about earlier, that rehabilitation roller coaster. Sometimes it's a loved one that you need to get rid of. Sometimes it's a friend. Most of the time it's friends. Sometimes you don't need money. You don't need a job. For the normal person, or the person who isn't addicted, that all sounds plausible. But once you've gone down that road that I took myself down, you must change everything.
I heard you say, road I took myself down. And that speaks to taking personal responsibility.
That's right. So to get help, that's the honesty part that's coming in. And to get help, there's a self-responsibility involved. You can have all the will in the world, you can go to all the meetings, read all the literature you want, but if you don't have that self-responsibility, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, it's very cliche, but it is so very true, you won't succeed. All the times that I was unsuccessful in recovery, I tried to hold on to something. I tried to hold on to drinking. I tried to hold on to friends. I tried to hold on to going in the same places. Eventually, you keep going to the barbershop, you're going to get a haircut. And I got a haircut every time. So it wasn't until I changed everything in my way of thinking was I released from those demons.
It's really good to hear that you were able to take responsibility for your own life and make the necessary changes to get yourself delivered. Is that a good word?
Very good word.
Good word. Delivered,
yes, ma'am.
Delivered and healed and set free. The man that I see sitting before me, I see no semblances, no traces of any of that. Tell us what your life is like now.
My life is wonderful. I have a passion, once again, for helping other people that struggle with addiction, because a lot of people, just like I did, are able to string together 30 days of sobriety, 2 months of sobriety, but to live 12 years of something that you loved so very dearly it's hard. And I always tell people, I'm great at mathematics, I can do calculus, theorems, all that kind of good stuff. But the hardest thing I ever did was to not drink. So I never lie or never give them a false sense of hope that it's easy, but I do tell them it can be done with self-responsibility and perseverance.
So Richard, you have detailed your story in a book. You share that with our audience.
Yes. The name of my book is Serenity Granted, Accepting Hardship as a Pathway to Peace. And the way I came up with the title, this is an interesting story in itself, is the guys that I used to see in the rehabilitation centers that were practicing a successful recovery, they all had a sense of serenity about themselves. My life was chaotic, theirs was serene. So the serenity prayer was something that we got up and recited every morning. When I was unsuccessful, I was just doing it out of repetition. When I started getting successful in recovery, it was because I was practicing it. God grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can. And here's the big one, Gigi, the wisdom to know the difference between the two.
Yes.
And that was powerful. So my life is filled with a lot of miracles. It's a miracle that I'm even here to talk to you.
Yes.
In doing research for my book, I've been to jail 27 times.
Oh my.
I've tried to commit suicide 4 times. And I got into a habit of stealing dope from the dope dealers. I've gotten shot at, a couple of guns across the head, sticks across the back. And I truly believe God had something more intended for me to go out and share my story to help others that are in peril.
Well, it is very obvious that God did indeed have a plan and a purpose for your life. Please tell our audience where they can get your book and where they can get in touch with you.
Audience, you can get in touch with me. I have a helpline, and it is 904-923-HOPE. And you can call that number. It comes right to, I have a second cell phone. It comes right to that, and I will talk to you personally. If I can't help you, I'll steer you in the right direction. My book can be ordered off of my website, serenitygranted.net. Also on that website, you can request me for speaking engagements, chat with me online. And another thing I'd like everybody to know is you can buy the book off Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, or you can buy it directly from my publishing company, which is Outskirts Publishing.
Richard, you have shared a wonderful story of redemption with us. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It has been such a blessing. We really appreciate you having you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Next, we're going to hear from Lakita Brooks with some additional resources. We are back with Lakita Brooks, licensed clinical social worker. Lakita, welcome to our show. After listening to Richard's story, for someone that is dealing with addictions, what kind of resources could you offer to someone?
Well, one of the resources would be the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, and they can go to mentalhealth.gov. But besides that, I wanted to touch on something else that Richard said. When it comes to parenting, Richard said that at the age of 6, he started drinking, which meant that he had access to alcohol. And as parents, we just take for granted, oh, our kids know better. They're not going to go in our DVDs. They're not going to go in our alcohol. So we just assume they're not going to, versus us just being aware that kids are going to be kids.
Yes.
And even lately, we've had a lot of gun violence. So we just have to be very cognizant of those things and put them up.
Put them away from our children. Yeah. As parents, we have a responsibility to protect our children. And you know, we don't even think about it. We take it for granted, like you said, that our children know better.
Exactly.
They know what to do and what not to do. But kids will be kids. And they will get into things. And in Richard's case, you know, he was just being a kid, but he liked it. You know, and the thought process is, oh, you know, they would try it and it would be so terrible that they wouldn't want to do it again. But that's not the case. That wasn't the case. It started at such a young age. And because it started at a young age, he had a lot of years of dealing with that abuse.
Mm-hmm.
So as parents, we have to take responsibility to keep our children safe. You know,
Exactly.
it wasn't intentional on the part of his parents, and that might have played into part of that enabling. You know, children grow up doing what is mirrored in home, what's mimicked. You know, what they see their parents doing at times. So we have to be careful. They are like little sponges, you know, and they'll soak up, they'll take, you know, on whatever they see. So it's really good that you pointed that out. When you talk about addictions and getting help, one of the things that he talked about was getting to that place of being sick and tired of being sick and tired. That place of personal accountability. You know, how do you go from addiction, a life of addiction, and just wake up one day and say, no more, I can't do this anymore? What is that? Is that something that comes from the inside? Is that something that comes from the outside? What do you think?
You know, I would say that it definitely comes from the inside. As Richard said, he went to treatment after treatment, even to a point where his family was sick and tired of being sick and tired of him stealing, going from this professional man at an engineering firm, just doing really great things in his life.
Mm-hmm.
An alcoholic, but very functional. So it actually took Richard to say, you know what, I need help.
Yes.
And then the second step was, what do I need to do to get the help that I need? And even with listening to Richard's story, he said that he went to treatment multiple times.
Many times.
And not until he was ready, and as some would say, good and ready, did he actually make that change in his life. And I want to say it was that serenity prayer. And he was able to observe the individuals at the rehabilitation facility he was at and to see, you know what, they have something that I want.
Yes.
I want that. And once he had a bite of that, it was like he was addicted to getting what they had.
Yeah.
And that's what he said. That's when he said it was serenity.
Yeah.
And that's what he titled his book.
Yeah. He didn't have that peace. And
Exactly.
he recognized it.
Mm-hmm.
That's powerful. That he saw something in someone else.
Exactly.
You know. And that's the other piece. As we live out our lives, we not only have responsibility for ourselves, but there are other people that are watching us, you know, and that may be looking at our life for inspiration, for some sense of something better. They need to see something better. I'm a firm believer that if I can see it, I can be it. And he was able to see in the lives of others that peace that he craved, that he wanted to have in his own life. And we are living examples, you know, and that's why we have to live our lives in such a way that it not only is good for us, it helps us and it supports us, but that it's a good example, that it shines some light for others. And that's what Still Surviving and Walking in Your Purpose is about. It's about showing those examples so that others can see that you can go through terrible things, you can have trials and tribulations, but that you can come out of those things and that you can be better on the other side. You can have a better life on the other side. Richard shared with us a powerful, powerful story, and it was such a blessing that he didn't give up in the midst of it, that he was able to make his way to deliverance and healing. Lakita, thank you so much for sharing with us on the show.
Thank you, Gigi.
After listening to Richard's story and listening with Lakita, it's just so powerful to know that you can go through really bad things, that life can throw you curves, and there can be calamity and there can be tragedy, but you can also find help, healing, and deliverance. Look here.